I decided to read from the first novel of this trilogy, Mighty Orion, Fate. And it's about an old tall ship sailor, and he, to abide by the theme this evening, Percy is the patriarch of the family, and in this little section we look at the first time the acorn cracks open and Percy starts to talk about his childhood, which he's never done, and people in the family had no idea. So there's the beginning of a change in book 1 that continues into 2 and 3. So here we have Percy, he's 72 and his son is in his mid-20s, in conversation. At the location is the old Kilkenny home lot on the ocean where Percy grew up. So the two are in the car and they're having this conversation sitting in front of the location where the house used to be. It burnt down, but there's the lot. The smell of those docks are sure hard on the stomach, Percy went on. But anyways, that day on my return, I was feeling grand next to my papa again. I sat with him for a long spell. Silent we were. But funny it is that after a while, I got a feeling something wasn't right with him. Before I could ask, he changed the mood and questioned me in a cheerful voice to tell him what the voyage was like. Asked me if they treated me right and to tell all that happened. I want to know what you did and where you went, says he. Percy went on. In the excitement of telling my adventures, we soon pushed aside the troubles. I told him how we sailed past the Rock of Gibraltar with its colony of baboons living high up there. Yes, yes, you could spot them with the spyglass. Baboons living on a rock? Yep, lumbering big baboons. Don't know who put them there, Percy shrugged. And when I went ashore in Lisbon in Portugal, I told him how I couldn't make out one word they were saying. Well then, talking on like this, we had a grand reunion, my dad and I. I told him how the sailors laughed when they caught sight of a woman in red high heels approaching me on the dock, asking me something. What did she want? Joe's lips tightened, struggling to suppress a grin. I didn't know at the time, says I to my old man, but I soon found out. And telling him that, my face went hot with a flush right there and then. That's nothing you want to be talking to your father about. Joe let loose, his belly shook with a loud guffaw. Well, sure you can laugh, Percy said, but you can see that was my shy thinking at the time. Your grandfather, he had a big laugh too, and slapped me on the back. Carrying on like this with him, I told him all the things I'd seen, the people I'd met, and how I managed with the ship's captain and crew. I told him about Olaf and wanted to take him down on board to meet the big strapping Norwegian, who was my friend. And I did take him too, next day. Was Uncle Zephan around? No, too bad. He was working in the woods that time, a topper he was. You know what that is. Yeah, he told me, trimming off the tops of tall trees to make it easier for falling. He was good at it, shorter than me, but strong and feisty, and didn't mind taking chances, Percy boasted, nodding affirmative. And that's a fella had the dance in him too, just like your Aunt Rose. Ballroom dancing. He could really charm the ladies. Percy laughed. Anyways, Papa said Zephan wouldn't be coming home the whole winter. I was sorry to hear that, because him and I got along. But he had good reason to put himself at a distance from the old woman. Joe wanted to know his uncle's reasons, but held his curiosity in abeyance. Quentin, the oldest, he'd be 20 at the time, was still at home, doing nothing productive as usual. Dressed himself up in a suit and out looking to make trouble, to get his hands on something for free. Mama's favorite, Mama's boy. You'd think he was her husband, the way she'd have him sitting with her, clinking glasses in the front room. Lots of fighting in the house because of that Quentin. What did Quentin look like, Joe asked. He hadn't seen photos of him either. The rascal had the blackest of hair and the bluest of eyes. Taller, bigger than us younger brothers. Took after her side of the family, the O'Farrells. Handsome-looking fellow he was. Everyone commented. Yes, but it did him no good. And being in her favor, he got away with pushing the rest of us around. A bully, Joe said. One thing he had heard of was Uncle Quentin's conniving. Right you are. Ah, yes, a bully from the time I could remember, Percy let out a long sigh. Anyways, I still needed to decide about signing on ship again, and after I'd spent the day with my father, I was on the mind to remain home for the winter and help him. He was commencing to overhaul his tug, breaking off piloting until spring in order to do a thorough job, he said. That's when I saw the signs he was getting old. Gray scattered through his coarse carrot orange hair, his broad shoulders starting to hunch over so he looked closer to my own height. In his navy overalls and green plaid shirt, he weren't as quick on his feet as he used to. Had he been, though, it would have saved him later that evening. In his mind's eye, Joe pictured the hard-working elder Kilkenny, his grandfather. He let fly his imagination and saw the designer and builder of a magnificent house, the well-traveled seafaring man, the late harbor pilot, and also, sadly enough, the man trapped in a badass marriage. Wish I could have known him, Joe said aloud, or seen a picture of him even. Percy glazed over the comment, hooked as he was into the long-ago memory. Right then I thought about fixing up the work shed for the two of us, Papa and me. I figured we could stay there and not bother going into the big house except to eat. When I asked him, he seemed to like the idea. He said it wouldn't take much insulation, and with stoking up the stove, we'd have a warm and comfortable place. Sounded like a solution. So there I was, feeling happy with my old man and anticipating the enjoyment with my sisters and showing Tommy some of what I learned on board. Yes, sirree, made me feel good. But with a languid sway of his head, he added, No, it just wasn't to be, not to be. Why? What happened? Joe asked quickly. I'll be telling you now, jeepers, Percy replied with impetuous irritation, if you'll just hold on. Joe didn't miss the warning. He wondered at the triggered sparks, but knew enough to keep quiet. He glimpsed his father's sudden terse look, his expression of agitation. You're having chest pains, Joe asked. You remember, eh? Jenny put your pills in your breast pocket. Percy whipped his head aside as if the immediate scene all at once had grown distasteful. Joe noticed how his father's eyes maintained the aversion, as though the recollection of days long past, peopled with vivid characters, had soured, as if all of it was suddenly overwhelmingly ugly. Damn if this place don't disturb me, Percy spit out. No, I don't have those chest pains. It's my heart that's hurting. Percy pulled his shoulders back. From under his cap visor, he set his gaze straight ahead and even. It fixed upon the windshield and beyond the empty plot in front of them to the blue of the horizon. He stared at the line written at the sky. There was hardly a separation. The demarcation was so pencil thin. Then without warning he turned to Joe and said, Let's get away from here, son. Take us away from this place, will you? Sure, I'm fine. Just don't want to be at this place is all. So now you've seen it, the old Kilkenny place. Now you know what I'm talking about. We'll go to the upper wharf, see what shape she's in, get ourselves over the water. I'm supposed to know now what you're talking about, Joe waxed incredulous. Cripes, you set off a grenade here. What a friggin' household. But he managed to keep his inner outburst to himself. Reining it in, he said, You kind of bowled me over telling me what went on here. He reached for the ignition key. Surprised me. He had just witnessed new facets of his father, parts of him that had never surfaced before. Joe felt for him in the awkwardness he displayed at making the disclosures, at his seeming embarrassment and shame concerning the behavior of his own mother, Dee Dee, and his brother, Quentin. Percy had never mentioned, let alone discussed, the loving relationship he enjoyed with his father, Seamus. Joe knew his father was on good terms with his other siblings. He had overheard conversations that bespoke of a sincere care for them. But he had no idea of the shared hardship the young Kilkennys had endured under the controlling and callous hand of grandmother Dee Dee O'Farrell. He had had no idea of their suffering. He tried to imagine what it would have been like to not have a mother's comforting, to not have her love and approval. How unnatural, he thought, to have never had that feeling of security that is woven into a mother's loving embrace, her hug of affection, her blessing. He was reminded of an adage that he had heard: what one learns at a mother's knee is absorbed deeply and carried forward into adult life. In his upbringing, his father had missed this critical part, an essential ingredient, maternal love. It had been withheld.
Thank you.